Hi, this is Miss Nikki Ann. This is part two to my first video titled I Had Too Many Strokes, which are transient ischemic attacks. Can't even think. I hope it. TIAs. That's how I say it because I've got too many big words to remember with my illnesses. So I'll just call them TIAs and mini strokes. So I'm at the part, this is part two, and the nurse comes in and about the blood work and everything. They're just waiting on, and the CAT scan was fine. They're waiting on the urine, and so I say to her, I wish there was a hospital for dysautonomia. And she's like, what do you? She seemed a little offended because, like, the doctor had been originally when he had first come in, he was saying like, you have to go down the list with triage people, and the doctor was there, and I was talking about my anemia and chronic anemia, chronic leukopenia, and he was like, "But what's causing those?" What I said, "Well, it's all connected to my dysautonomia." He said, "No, that." I said, "No." I said, "Research has shown, they don't know why, but research has shown that a big majority of us have chronic anemia and leukopenia." And then he just kind of shut up. And I think that was the moment kind of when he left. I think I offended him by trying to, you know, give him, school him on, my illness. And I said, and I said to him, then I said, unfortunately, most doctors don't know much about dysautonomia. And I think that's when he left. When I said that line, because I just wanted to put him straight. Like, you're not going to tell me about my dysautonomia and the years I've spent researching, not alone, but also with my doctors. You're not going to sit here and try to debunk all of that in 2 minutes. And so then he leaves, and then the nurse comes in after I've done all of my stuff, and I've got the proper saline going and everything. And I said to her, "Yeah, I wish there was a hospital." She was slightly offended. "What do you mean?" I said, "Because you guys aren't able to catch dysautonomia symptoms because it's an invisible illness. You look at us and you look at our blood work and you think we're fine." And she kept going, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I'm lying down, and so you can't catch any of my real numbers, my orthostatic intolerant numbers." She was like, "But your pressure's fine." I said, number one, my pressure wasn't fine. I was 153 over like one something. And my heart rate, and I'm lying down, my heart rate is it was 91 lying down. And I'm always, my pulse is always high. I spend my life at a 90, and then when I stand up, I go to 140. And I'm thinking, how can you look at those numbers and think that that's normal? And at least you should be telling me you have high blood pressure, which I know is not the case, which I know my body is just going crazy trying to regulate. That's all. I haven't hit 150 something ever. And that day I was in the low numbers. And in the ambulance over, the guy was like, I heard him saying, "Yeah, she's dropping." And that's when and they just, I remember them saying something like, "Nikki, don't do this to us." Because I was lying down, I was dropping. And for me, 90 over whatever, heart rate 140 is normal. But I didn't know I was delirious. And I had to remember they're seeing it on the mini stroke end, which I have to be a little bit more determined about too. It's not that they're thinking the dysautonomia is killing me. They're like, this mini stroke is is doing some damage. And it just kept in the sirens and the calls. When I was in, they did the rush in. I've never been rushed in like that before, with a room full of people. And it's crazy. I didn't realize it was that bad because I was delirious from the stroke. And so, but anyway, and so I'm going back and forth with the nurse saying, "Yeah, because if you stand me up for," I said, "with my dysautonomia, my POTS, I have to be standing for about 5 minutes." I said, "If you give my blood time to pool, that's for about 5 minutes. That's when you're going to see your lowest number, because that's what happened with my tilt table test. It took about 5 minutes." I said, "Anything before that, it's going to look absolutely normal to you, more than likely." Sometimes I stand up and boom, just like it did for the lady at the urgent care yesterday before I went to the ER. I stood up and immediately happened for her. but sometimes it's not immediate. And so then she said, you know what, let's do it. I was like, what do you mean? She said, let's do it. She said, I want to see this. She didn't believe me. She said with it, I want to see this, you know. So I was like, okay, I want you to get scared. No, no, because I'm standing here. I just want to, I've got you. I was like, okay, don't get scared. So I stood up, and immediately it dropped the 30 points. Pressure, which was 91, went up to 140. And then she's like, holding me. I said, don't hold me. I've got to stand and let all of this do what it's going to do. And just 2 minutes in, she's like, that's enough. I'm like, no, 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 no. I said, if you're nervous, I'll pace a little bit. I said, if I pace, I probably won't pass out on you. And I started pacing. 3 minutes in, she was like, I've seen enough. She said, I've never seen anything like this before. I would have never believed you if you hadn't told me. And I was like, and I'm sitting there as I'm sick. I'm gagging. And that's why she wants me to sit down, because it's making the mini stroke worse again. And but I'm used to it. And so I'm going to her, you see, don't I look normal? I said, don't I look normal? So she had me sit down. I said, you know how frustrating it is to look normal, but be so sick inside? It's sick to a point where you need special tests to diagnose it. Not the everyday test you run in here, but special tests. And so you never get the care you need because no one's running the right tests. I said, I know people who've suffered like that for 15 years. Good thing I didn't. I had really good doctors who were determined that they knew me well enough to know that it wasn't in my mind. Yeah, okay. And so, I said, and people question me. I said, disability questions me. Why can't you work? I said, you tell me if my heart rate is already, when I'm resting, at 90, 100, and then I go to stand, how tired am I? I'm too tired to think. I'm too tired to do a job. I'm too tired to take a shower. I'm too tired to do everything I need to do for my body and for my son. And that's where her eyes are. I said, I have a 5-year-old. And I still make sure I'm in the car to drive him to school. I make sure that I'm at activities, even though I'm not feeling well. I said, as soon as I stand up, my world goes bad. And then she was just like, I'm so sorry. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, sorry doesn't cut it years down the line. You shouldn't assume anything. That's why, my faith, I believe, that's why you don't judge a thing. You're not to pass the judgment. You're here to do your job. Your job is to test and test and test and exhaust your testing until you've gotten the answer. If it looks as if you're dealing with a sane person who's complaining about insane symptoms. And so finally she says, but I have to go. I need to give this to him. I think this is a big piece of the pie. Really? I was like, fine, She went and gave it to him, and then he didn't want to let me go. And by then he had read all of my doctor's notes and was like, he comes in, guys, and this is what he says to me. He says, how do you feel? How are you feeling? I said, I feel as if I have dysautonomia. He said, and because you have dysautonomia. You know what happens when you go to stand up and your body, your compensatory this and that. And I'm just looking at him. And then at some point, after, he got over his pride about it, that he knew so much all of a sudden, after an hour of reading, he was like, but you know all of this, don't you? Yeah. I said, and he said, and you know even more, don't you, from research and from living with it? I said, yeah. I said, so my only concern is my many strokes. What can you tell me about what I'm here for? I didn't ask you to diagnose my dysautonomia. I have a diagnosis from lots of specialists that is dysautonomia. I wasn't here for you to figure that out. I was here for a mini stroke, and my rheumatologist called and spoke to you and told you that, so that we wouldn't have this problem, you trying to diagnose it. And he said, yes, you definitely had a TIA. And he says, I'm going to leave that fluid running. Listen to this, guys, because he says, I'm not saying that your mini stroke is not separate. I'm not saying that you don't have two separate issues going on here. What I am saying is that I believe that it's feeding off of your dysautonomia, is not helping it. And so if I run this bag of fluids, this special saline that your doctor prescribed, which I think is exactly what you need, because the others would have made you worse, and we don't want to do that. Really? He was like, I want to run this bag really fast. And I didn't want him to run it fast, but I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to try and school him on the fact that he should not run it fast, because they've already dehydrated me, guys. By then I was so dehydrated because they were so slow about fighting what I was trying, and what my doctor had told them. They were fighting that. She told them too about the special saline, which they had to make. So, you really need this. I need for you to get this in before you go. I need for you to definitely go to your doctor. Because I had a doctor appointment for today anyway. Because I'll release you, but I need for you to go to that doctor appointment because I believe that this IV fluid is going to be the thing to help to prevent more of these TIAs. And he was explaining, all the stuff we know about the blood and the texture, and it gets up to my brain and it clots. He said, and I believe this is a great help to prevent it. So even though they're not both the same issue, they feed off of one another. And I said, thank you. And he looked at me and I said, thank you, because I've never been to the emergency room and actually finally got someone to understand. Ever. And I've been a million times. And so he left, and when they finally discharged me, I looked at my paperwork, guys, and for the first time it didn't say vertigo and fatigue or something. It said pre-syncope for the primary diagnosis and dysautonomia for the second diagnosis on paper at the ER. So the next time I go and they pull it up, it's there. She's pre-syncope, she's got dysautonomia, and I don't have to go through this long story. Now they've got all my files from my rheumatologist and everyone, my GI, my neuro-ophthalmologist, my dysautonomia specialist. They have it all, so at least it won't be this struggle anymore if I have to go for another TIA, because I try not to go for my dysautonomia. I just prefer the doctor to check me in and to know that they're going to use the IV treatments to help with the. And then when I left, the nurse said, I'm so sorry. I said, me too. And she had met my little guy because mom had picked him up from school. And she said, he's so beautiful. I said, I know. Because that's what this is all about, trying to stay alive, to do the job that God needs for me to do for him. And that's all I want you guys to do, is to help me stay alive for my son. Not for me, not because I'm so great, but because God has great things for him. So I'm 36 in a few months. I've lived those exciting, great parts of my 20s and things. And I want him to, and that's the phase where you leave and you use all the information that your parents have taught you. I want him to have that experience, and I want to be here to help him to get there. And I don't want to die of a real stroke because you didn't take me seriously. So that's it. 13 minutes, and thank you for listening to this story, and I hope it helps someone else. I pray, Jesus, I pray that this story helps someone else.